Your daily dose of sports talk is here. Highlights, interviews, and analysis. From the entertainment capital of the world, SportsWrap with Jason Page starts now.
Indeed it does, and great to have you with us on this Monday edition of the show with so much to do over the next 60 minutes. Sam Yarnell will be here. We'll get into the Stanley Cup Final and the NBA Finals with him. Also chat about the French Open at Roland Garros. 2 first-time winners crowned this weekend in Paris. Jerry Bonkowski will be here to talk about a very eventful NASCAR race in Michigan. Denny Hamlin does it again. When will it stop? Maybe it ends with him winning a NASCAR Cup Championship. We said the same thing last week when we had this conversation, and we'll see what Jerry has to say about that. Also, a scary crash. I mean, a frightening crash that took place in Michigan yesterday. Amazingly, no serious injuries, although there are some injuries to come out of it. And Jerry Bonkowski of Essentially Sports will talk about that coming up a little later on in the hour. And odds and ends, some golf. U.S. Women's Open held over the weekend at Riviera. One of the best female golfers in the world reclaiming her place atop the sport. And an oldie but a goodie, winning at Memorial. We'll talk about that too, and a whole bunch more. But we get things started as we always do. On this Monday edition of the show, it's time for the big story. And before we get to the big story, a reminder, check out the Daily Wrap, courtesy of SportsWrap with Jason Page. It's on our Substack. Hit that, scan that QR code right there that's on your TV screen. And if you happen to be listening to us on the podcast, just go to Substack, check it out. The Daily Wrap, it is a newsletter that you can get every morning, Monday through Friday, that talks about what we talked about on the show and gives you a rundown in a newsletter form. Because who doesn't? Everybody's got a newsletter these days, and that includes me. So go and subscribe to the Daily Wrap on our Substack today. We appreciate you doing so. All right, where do we begin with this wild weekend that was? Kind of a two-parter for the big story. First of all, the Knicks and the Spurs kind of kicked off the weekend on Friday night with the Knicks winning. They blew a 14-point lead in the latter stages of the fourth quarter. About midway through the fourth quarter, they were up about 14 points. And then the Spurs come roaring back, and it just looked like the Knicks fell apart. Everything they had been doing up until that point in the game, now they'd become more one-on-one centric, turning the basketball over. The Spurs really amped it up on defense. You got Wemby making shots, and the Knicks looked like, for all intents and purpose, they were going to lose game 2 of this series, which wouldn't have been a shock if they had split the first 2 games of this series down in San Antonio. By the way, keep an eye on Stephon Castle. He suffered kind of a gnarly-looking ankle injury late in that game. But yeah, and you got De'Aaron Fox jawing with Jalen Brunson. They're going back and forth. Rick Brunson's down all the way at the end of the court where he doesn't belong. I'm tired of Rick Brunson, but that's another story for another time. But ultimately, this game came down to, yet again, in the late stages, Jalen Brunson making shots and Victor Wembanyama not making shots. That's what you had. And look, I mean, anybody who's listened to this show knows I am as big a proponent of Victor Wembanyama as there is in all of the media. I love the guy. But he's learning that these are the growing pains you go through in trying to win your first championship. And a lot of people argued, not me, but a lot of people argued this Spurs team was 1 year early to the party. In terms of, sort of to use a party phrase, could they hold their liquor? And it felt like through the first few rounds of this postseason, they were a team that could hold their liquor. But now that you see them in these NBA Finals against a really experienced Knicks team that's been through the battles, has the scar tissue built up, you've seen the Knicks, and that scar tissue, it's really paying dividends in the late stages of these games. Now, I don't know what changes in Game 3 tonight at Madison Square Garden. I don't know what it is. I still, in my heart of hearts, believe San Antonio could win this series. I don't think they will. It would be monumental if they did, and it would be the worst collapse in the history of New York basketball if the Knicks found a way to lose this series and not win their first title in 53 years. But would it shock you at all, given what you've seen in the first 2 games of this series, if the Spurs went into Madison Square Garden tonight, which is going to be a madhouse for a number of reasons, which we'll talk about coming up, and beat the Knicks? I wouldn't be shocked. And I don't think the odds makers would be shocked, because they have the Knicks only giving 2.5 after winning the first 2 games on the road and not having lost a game since the end of April. Big story number 1. Big story number 2. How good has this Stanley Cup Final been? I mean, you know, the line in the movie Batman, I'm just coming up with all sorts of different things. Not the hero we need, but the hero we have sort of thing. This is the Stanley Cup Final. Who the hell had Las Vegas versus Carolina in their pool of who's going to meet in the Stanley Cup Final when this postseason began? When Las Vegas just scraped into the postseason. Fired their head coach right before the end of the season. Carolina, always the bridesmaid, never the bride here in recent years. Good enough to be a conference final team, but not good enough to get over the hump. Now you got the 2 of them meeting in a Stanley Cup Final. It's been fantastic. Saturday night's game, as good as it gets in any sport, in any championship series. 4 goals in the second period for the Golden Knights. 4 in the third period to come from behind down 4-0 for Carolina. And then the flukiest way the game could possibly end in overtime on basically the second own goal of the game that the Hurricanes scored on themselves. And we're through 3 games. Game 4 tomorrow night back here in Las Vegas where we reside. Stanley Cup is in town today over at the Hall of Excellence at Fontainebleau. If you happen to see this before it's too late, between 2 and 5 p.m. at the Fontainebleau in the Hall of Excellence. My buddy Howie Deneroff runs that. It's the Jim Gray, Tom Brady artifacts sort of museum, sports artifacts museum, 2 to 5 p.m. today. Over there, they're going to have the Stanley Cup on display. Series has been fantastic. Who's going to win? I have no idea at this point. I picked Vegas. We'll see what happens. That's the big story. We're coming back with more. Welcome back to the show. You've heard what I had to say in the big story. Let's see what this guy has to say. Sam Yarnell, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only. Hangs out with us most days here on the show. Game 3, Madison Square Garden. By the time you see this show, depending on when you watch us, it may have already taken place. This is why I tell you, watch the YouTube channel, listen to the podcast. You'll hear it there first every day. Sam Yarnell, Knicks and Spurs, Game 3. I think the Spurs win tonight. I think there are so many reasons why I could pick the Spurs tonight. And Vegas only has the Knicks as a 2.5-point favorite. For a team that's won 13 games in a row and won the first 2 on the road, that's a red flag to me as well, Sam Yarnell. But I think you're gonna see a fired up Spurs team tonight that gets themselves back in this series with a win in Game 3. That being said, I'm interested to see what you have to say on a number of issues, including, Wemby in the clutch in these games late. In both games 1 and 2. The fact that the Knicks have won without really getting a good shooting performance from Jalen Brunson in the first 2 games. The way the series has been officiated, which we talked about in the big story, where they are just letting them do basically whatever they want. It's prison yard basketball. We're like back to the late 90s. I'm interested to get your thoughts on all of those things and more. Go.
Well, like you said, Jason, it is going to be an absolutely crazy environment inside Madison Square Garden, inside Manhattan, really, for the next 2 games, for the next however many days, 4 days at this point. I'm fascinated to see it. The things are getting started early and often. Got to throw in a quick shout out. A kid I went to college with. spent all of Sunday outside of Madison Square Garden. A couple of media outlets picked this up. He said Jalen Brunson 100,000 times outside of Madison Square Garden on a live stream. 100,000 times. Really cool stuff. Knicks fans are going absolutely crazy. Knicks fans are going absolutely... You got kids standing outside of the arena for 12 hours just repeating the best player's name. What on earth is happening in New York? But Jason, we have to have a real conversation, because caught up in all of this is yet another, add it to the list, mess up from Adam Silver and the league office. This is maybe the most egregious one they've had yet. How on earth? How on earth?
There we go.
And I guess throw James Dolan into some of the blame for this as well, because you'll see in a minute. How on earth do you, in New York City, having the finals come for the first time in 30 years, have 2 home games and neither of them come up on a weekend? You had the first back-to-back days off of this entire NBA Finals, and it happened to be a Saturday and Sunday when you weren't going to play a game at Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena. An utter embarrassment from James Dolan. And I know, the Tony Awards were going on at Madison Square Garden. Oh, the Tony Awards. Listen, I got news for you, people. James Dolan also owns Radio City Music Hall. They just as easily could have had the Tony Awards simultaneously at Radio City Music Hall. This is an embarrassment for the league. It's an embarrassment for James Dolan. There is no reason that this game should be being played on Monday night as opposed to Sunday night, a night that a lot of people, no offense, Jason's age, associate with the NBA Finals.
I gave you 2 minutes, and you give me 2 minutes on the Sunday night thing. Talk to me about the series.
You make good points about Wemby. I mean, he had the ball in his hands to win the game in Game 2. It's as simple as that, and he didn't. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry, right? It's the best player in the world. It's everyone who wants to say is the future face of this league. Had a chance to win the game in the NBA Finals, missed the shot. It's as simple as that. I mean, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that Wemby's no longer everything that everyone's making him out to be. That would be crazy. That would be an asinine thing for me to believe. But I will say there are people bringing up questions about the clutch gene of the kid. I think those are warranted to an extent. He's 22 freaking years old. He doesn't need to be expected to hit every freaking big shot in every freaking big moment for this team.
You went up an octave there. I'm impressed. Speaking of the Tonys, your range, not to be outdone. You could have been performing at those Tonys at Madison Square Garden. It's not very far from where you live. I mean, it is the Tony Awards, by the way. I mean, it's kind of hard.
It is, and I understand it. But it's the Knicks in the finals. The Tonys happen every year.
Who would have thought the Knicks were going to be in the finals when you're scheduling these things out? I mean, I get it. The fact there were no NBA Finals games this weekend is kind of laughable. But we will get to the hockey, which there was hockey this weekend. We'll get to that coming up in about 6 or 7 minutes here on the show. Do you? I mean, look, you could still get the Spurs you can get the Spurs at a good price right now, down 2-0. You can get them at plus 385. The Knicks at minus 500, which again, for a team that's won 2 games on the road, up 2-0, going back to their home arena, having won 13 in a row, it still tells you there's a little trepidation when it comes to the odds makers here.
I wouldn't touch the Spurs with a 10-foot pole right now. I would not touch the Spurs with a 10-foot pole right now. All they have shown you through the first 2 games of this series is that all those questions that people had before the series started of, are they too young to play in the NBA Finals? Are they too inexperienced to play in the... Yes! Glaringly, obviously, yes. Maybe it's because they dribble across half court and they all see the Larry O'Brien every time they're going up and down the floor, and that just makes them nervous. I don't know what it is, but this team clearly was not ready for this stage. It's as simple as that, Jason. They're too young. They're not experienced enough. You have to lose before you can win. The Knicks already lost. The Spurs haven't yet. This is how this kind of thing works in the NBA.
Can I just say this on the Trump thing tonight? Stay home. Just stay. And this is not a political thing. Did anybody see the U.S. Open final last year when Trump was there and the match started and the place was half full because half of the paying customers were standing outside trying to get in? I'm telling you, the vibe at the Garden tonight is just going to be bizarre. Everybody thinks it's going to be nuts and the Knicks fans and blah, blah, blah. Trump has screwed this whole thing up. And Mamdani going isn't going to make it any better, by the way. Insta-mayor there. Zoran Mamdani. I almost called him Moron Mamdani. Zoran Mamdani, who's going to be there tonight as well. Just both of you, stay home. Stay at Greasy Mansion. Stay at the White House. Nod off all you want, Trump. You don't even have to worry about whether people are catching you falling asleep or not. Just don't go to the game. Don't ruin it for all the Knicks fans and all these people paying $1 zillion now who can't even bring a bottle of water into the arena without having to worry about getting tackled by Secret Service.
Yeah, real quick. Sporting events are not sporting events. When the team is putting out PR statements the day before the game saying, show up 2 hours early at least, and also don't bring a single thing. That's not a sporting event.
Nope, it's not. I'll tell you what was a sporting event. Game 3, Stanley Cup Final here in Las Vegas. Wow, what a game between the Golden Knights and the Canes. We'll get to it next. Welcome back. Coming up in 10 minutes, the French Open at Roland Garros. Something else I talked about in the big story, the be careful what you wish for scenario. Everybody loves upsets. Yay! Until you have Flavio Caboli and Sasha Zverev in your final. Yay! And some Russian woman in the women's final that you've never heard of, who's getting dusted. And I'm half Polish, so it's not an anti-Poland thing. Sam Yarnell, I was riveted, positively riveted on Saturday night. I took over the television in the living room, which I rarely get to do, because my husband's normally playing video games on it, and I don't get to get anywhere near it. It's a terrible thing.
Good man.
It's a terrible thing. I've never said.
What's his game of choice?
He's watching people play Hitman on YouTube. He's not even playing it himself. He's watching people play. I'm like, what are you doing? There's only one thing dumber than a 40-something-year-old playing video games, and it's a 40-something-year-old watching other people play video games on YouTube. I mean, what are we doing? What's going on? The Golden Knights, what a wild game on Saturday. I mean, this was an all-timer. The Golden Knights at home in Las Vegas, series tied at 1, go up 4-0. You've got the Mitch Marner miracle story happening. Like, you could see the movie being written. The guy scores 3 goals in the second period. He has 4 points. Carolina's coming unglued. You've got all the announcers on the game telling me how, oh my God, it's all over. Put Bussy in. Let's have him, finish the game. Get Frederik Andersen out of the game. And then all of a sudden, you got a bunch of goals scored in like 30 seconds by Carolina in the third period. They come back, tie the game at 4. All the momentum on their side. They don't score. Nobody scores in the first overtime, and then the second overtime, you see it here, with Vegas getting the win 5-4 in overtime. That is as crushing a defeat. Oh, my gosh. I mean, you have 2 own goals, basically, in this game for Carolina. You basically had 2 own goals. So if you want a positive, if you're a Carolina fan, you lost 5-4 in overtime in a game you were down 4-0, and you scored 2 of the goals on yourself. And you could have given up another 2 goals in that game, if not for penalties that were called, one in offsides, one a goalie interference on Vegas. What a wild game on Saturday night, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, this game is truly it feels like it's one of the ones that should go down in terms of all-time sports history in a championship series. Yeah. To get a game like this, I didn't do extensive research. I couldn't find another Stanley Cup Final game in any series, in any Stanley Cup Final, where both teams scored 4 unanswered goals. Both teams scored 4 unanswered goals. That is nearly impossible.
It's bonkers.
This was crazy. Credit to Brandon Busey, like you said. It was kind of upsetting, honestly, to see Frederik Andersen go through that after everything that he's been through in the National Hockey League. But Brandon Busey, I mean, sent from a different dimension for the last period and then 2 overtimes of that game. the Vegas Golden Knights, and I'll call it what it is, being the one on the show who doesn't live in Vegas, the Vegas Golden Knights got beyond lucky to win this game. They should have lost this game about 4 or 5 times between the first overtime, the second overtime, and then whatever that goal was that ends up going in. I mean, that was just that was kind of the bad part of this whole thing, was you had a game this good and it ends that poorly. Yep. Like, nobody wanted that game to end like that. Everyone wanted that game to end on a sick breakaway goal, on a nice pass to a guy who just beats a goaltender clean. That was not how anyone wanted that game to end. And it's really, it's not disheartening for the Carolina Hurricanes, but you have to imagine that they would have so much more wind in their sails coming off of a double overtime win on the road to give themselves the lead in the series. Like, you wonder if that's kind of a moment that, despite it not being really in Carolina's control, it feels like that could be the moment that Vegas takes off and they just run from here. They just go, they take the next 2 games, and it feels like that's on the board for me.
I'm not convinced of that. I'm really not. And frankly, neither is Vegas. I mean, they have Carolina plus 152 still to win the series. Vegas at minus 184. I'm not convinced. And like I said, the fact that you had 2 own goals in this game, the second period where Carolina falls apart, and you still wind up getting this game to overtime and losing 5-4, I don't feel that way. What I am interested to see is who starts in goal for game 4.
Oh, I don't think you can move off of Frederik Andersen. I think that you have to write it off to a bad day. And
Bussy had a record-breaking season, and this guy got dumped because Andersen got off to a good start in the playoffs, and they basically forgot all about Bussy. But man, how do you not start? That dude stood on his head in game 3, especially in the third period. I don't know. Man.
It'll be interesting to see. He started like half their games during the regular season.
He did. So, and he was like 31-6. It was some stupid number that he had during the regular season. When I saw that, I'm like, how is this guy not starting in the playoffs again with the numbers he put up during the regular season? Like, it's just
But Jason, like, the other side of that is you're the Carolina Hurricanes. You've started 1 goalie the entire playoffs. Now needing 3 wins to hoist the Stanley Cup, you're going to switch? Like, as much as you and I talk about hot goalies going into the playoffs, it feels like you got to stick with your goalie throughout here. It's so nerve-wracking if Carolina were to switch starters going into game 4.
Carter Hart's been shaky too.
I understand it.
I'll also say this: Carter Hart's been shaky in the first few games of this series. Everybody's like, "Oh, is he going to get a shutout?" And then before you know it, it's 4-4 in the third period of that game. Carter Hart's been a little shaky. I think if there was ever a series though, where having the extra day off. If there was ever a series where this extra day off is beneficial to Carolina, where it feels like you've been playing every other day, this entire postseason, I think Carolina is very fortunate to have this extra day off. And conversely, I think if you're Vegas, you wish you were playing tonight.
Carter Hart, shaky? What are we in a Canadian courtroom, Jason? Come on now.
There it is.
Low-hanging fruit, had to get after it. Yeah, awful human being, just for the record. All-time bad human being. Much better hockey player, much better goalie, even being bad at being a goalie in this last game. Still 10 times the goalie of the human being. Just throwing that in here in my last. Horrible person, Carter Hart. Does not deserve to be on the Stanley Cup. You are a bad person. I hope this show makes it into your apartment, Carter Hart. You're a horrible person.
Sam Yarnell, ladies and gentlemen. We got tennis to talk about next. Welcome back to the show. Coming up in 10 minutes, Jerry Bonkowski swings by from Essentially Sports, does a great job on NASCAR, auto racing, longtime NASCAR and auto racing journalist. Joins us every Monday on the show to break down what's going on in the world of NASCAR. Denny Hamlin, another win. His 3rd of the season, 63rd of his career. And this one was a special one, and we'll explain why coming up. In a crash-filled race at the Firekeepers in Michigan. A lot of wrecks, one of them really serious. We'll get into all that coming up in about 10 minutes. Let's talk about the French Open at Roland Garros, which concluded. And look, I did a brief thing on this on the weekend edition of SportsWrap in our odds and ends segment for that show. Be careful what you wish for. This tournament is the embodiment of fans. Be careful what you wish for. Every time you watch these tennis majors, they're always rooting for the underdog. We always want that feel-good story, right? Well, when you get too many of those feel-good stories, you get what you got this weekend. Particularly on the women's side, where Mira Andreeva was your winner at Roland Garros in straight sets over Maya Walinska, I should say, not Walinski, against Maya Walinska, who came into this tournament ranked like 130th in the world. She'll come out being ranked like 21st or something like that. She wins over $1 million. That's a great story. It's wonderful. But this final on Saturday between Andreeva and Walinska, it felt like a fait accompli. Basically, from the get-go, you could see Andreeva was the vastly superior player. And when I get a championship match in one of my Grand Slam events, I don't want to see a rout. I don't want to see Mira Andreeva winning in straight sets, nearly bageling Maya Walinska in the second set of a straight sets win. But when you get upset after upset after upset, this is what you wind up walking into. And look, I get it. Sports are about the underdog. They're about the Cinderella story, right? Max Baer. You ever seen the movie Cinderella Story? With Russell Crowe. And he takes on Max Baer, the dancing bear. And Max Baer goes up to Russell Crowe's character before their big fight. And he says, hey, people die in fairy tales all the time. Well, that was Maya Walinska. It's a great fairy tale story. But eventually, you run into a situation where that fairy tale is going to come to an end. And that's essentially what you had in this match, as Andreeva realizes all this potential that she has had. A couple of years ago at 17, winning in Dubai, then winning in Indian Wells, and beating some of the best in the world to do it. She's a fantastic player in a women's side of the tennis world that really has a lot of great talent. But I want, when I tune in and get up at, 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning to watch the French Open Roland Garros final on the women's side, I want to see something compelling. This was not compelling in any way, shape, or form. You could see Andreeva was the far superior tennis player in this match and was going to win. That's number one. Her dog is cute, though. Adopt, don't shop, by the way. That's number one. Number two, Sasha Zverev. At least he won. Let me start there. Because with no Alcaraz injured, Sinner going out in the second round, Novak Djokovic going out in the third round, Daniel Medvedev is lost in his head, Ben Shelton not ready for the big stage, Taylor Fritz, on and on and on. I mean, we can go through all the different litany of also rans in men's tennis. We all know the story by now. There is a graveyard of them in this world of tennis that we live in. Well, it was right there for Sasha Zverev. If not this one, he was never going to win a major. Now they're going to argue, and I heard Patrick McEnroe, our friend, and John McEnroe on the broadcast saying, maybe this unlocks him. Maybe he wins multiple ones. Let me tell you something. As long as Sinner and Alcaraz are around, he ain't winning multiples of anything. I still don't even know if I'd take him over Novak Djokovic at 39-year-old Djokovic if they had been playing in this match. But you know what? Credit to Sasha Zverev, who is another guy that's had a really difficult time getting out of his own head and has talked openly, and I credit him for that, about the mental fatigue that sort of worn him down over the course of his career. But he finally wins his first slam.
Of 2026.
It's the French Open at Roland Garros, and good for him. But again, this is what you get when you tune in on Sunday morning to watch the French Open final at Roland Garros, and you're rooting for upsets all tournament long, and then you tune in, and what do you get? You get Kaboli versus Zverev. No Djokovic, no Alcaraz, no Americans, no Sinner. Because upsets are nice. A few of them here and there, sprinkle them in. But when you get too many, this is what you get. You get Kaboli and Zverev. And again, it won 5 sets. But I'm curious how many people tuned in. I'll be fascinated to see what the ratings look like when they release the number. Because I don't think it's going to be nearly as big as what we saw a year ago, which was an epic 5-set match. But it was the very best in the world. We're coming back. Welcome back to the show. I was just joking with our friend Jerry Bonkowski off the air that I watched every lap of the Firekeepers 400 in Michigan yesterday, where Denny Hamlin, what is his third win of the season?
Yep.
Having a great year, Jerry. Yeah, it's amazing. Maybe this is the year. Like I was saying to Tino last Friday, maybe this is the year it finally happens for Denny Hamlin, a Cup Series championship, Jerry Bonkowski. He comes from the back of the pack yesterday. He's on the pole. Then he has to go back to the back because they wanted to do some modifications to the car. And again, he comes from the back of the pack to win this race. A crash-filled race, a very clunky, the way I termed it yesterday online was, it was a very clunky race because of all the wrecks. Was there 10 wrecks or 10 yellows? So give me your thoughts on Denny Hamlin getting another win here.
Well, Denny has inspiration, number one. He came into this season with inspiration. He wants to win a championship for his late father. Obviously, his father tragically killed in that fire back in December. That's number one. Number two, to me, Denny's motivation and inspiration is because of his father. Not so much because Denny wants to win that first championship, but because he wants to do it for his father. And then you couple that with the inspiration and motivation about, he was good friends with Kyle Busch, and he's talked several times since Kyle's unfortunate passing about how close they were and how good of friends they were. So I think that Denny is using this, he even dedicated yesterday's win to Kyle Busch. So, when you do that, it just kind of, it's a mindset that a guy has. When, Denny obviously knows his time racing, he may have another couple of years, if that, but I mean, he's racing like he's in his 20s or his early 30s, he's racing like he's in his prime. So, I think that we're going to see from Denny this year is just going to be continued to thing. I'm not going to be surprised if he wins 6 or 7 races this year.
Wow. 63rd win of his illustrious career, what will one day be a Hall of Fame career, tying Kyle Busch, which was why after the race he was running around the track with his flag, with the Kyle Busch flag hanging out the window, which was very cool. What do you attribute all the wrecks to? And they were in weird places yesterday. Carson Hocevar involved yet again, and you saw Tyler Reddick was kind of bent out of shape about that when he was involved in a wreck that it seemed Hocevar may have initiated. And Hocevar was right there, by the way, in this race at his home track. He was, he was up against the wall at one point in the latter stages of the race and was able to recover. There were a lot of interesting stories that came out of this thing yesterday. So if I sound scatterbrained, it's because there were a lot of different things that came out. Bubba Wallace with a top 5 finish is certainly very encouraging for that team, given where they've been throughout the season. Other than Hamlin, what sort of stands out to you from what we saw yesterday?
Well, first of all, the wrecks. I mean, it's not surprising because if you compare Michigan and what used to be Fontana, which is no longer a track anymore, unfortunately. They both were very similar. You had a lot of, as you put it, weird wrecks, and it's not unusual, but the severity of the wrecks was a little surprising to me. I mean, there were some pretty hard hits, as we mentioned off air. We were talking about the Chase Elliott, excuse me, and Christopher Bell wreck.
This was frightening. For people who didn't see it, we'll put it up on the screen here. This was Chase Elliott and Christopher Bell, and I mean, this was as violent a wreck as I've seen, and I don't watch it as often as you do. This was as violent a wreck as I've seen. They had to actually basically red flag the race, which you don't see very often, because they had to repair the safety barrier because they slammed into the wall so hard, Jerry.
They did. And, as we were talking about off the air, I mean, it's a testament to NASCAR's safety initiatives that, they weren't more seriously hurt. I mean, Chase Elliott walks away from it. He seems to be in okay shape. Christopher Bell, Monday morning, we're hearing now that, he has wrist and ankle injuries, which when you have crashes, the first two things that almost always happen to a driver are the wrist and the feet. So whether he'll be able to race next week in Pocono, that's the big question mark right now. I'm sure they're looking at who are they going to bring up one of the guys from the their O'Reilly Auto Parts team, or will they bring in maybe a ringer? I mean, there's all kinds of things they could consider doing. But it was just as you say, a very weird day. And when you look at a place like Michigan, it's not surprising. It's a 2-mile super speedway. I've seen so many wrecks there over the years, not only when in a NASCAR, but also when IndyCar was racing there too, as well, or kart when they were when they were known as kart. So it's the high speeds, the construction of the track, the way it's designed and everything like that. It kind of lends itself to a lot of wrecks. And similar, I always like to compare Michigan with Talladega to me. I mean, even though it's not a plate race, or it used to be a plate race, if you will, like Talladega, it's very similar to that. So when you have a wide open track like that, you have a lot of drivers that, they sometimes just lose their focus, and that leads to wrecks. And that's what happened on Sunday.
And even in the last minute here, even for Tyler Reddick, who wrecked, he still won the first stage. So he still gets stage points out of it. Right. Kyle Larson, a top 5 finish as well. Jerry
Eric Jones second, and that's in his home state too. That's another one too to look at.
Yep, didn't lead a single lap of the race, but he somehow finished second, right. which is pretty wild. Joey Logano finishes 7th. He needed that as well. So a little bit of something for everybody here, Jerry, in the final 30 seconds.
Exactly, and I think that now we see where things go from here forward, especially for Joe Gibbs Racing. What are they going to do with Christopher Bell? Hopefully, he'll be able to race, but time will tell.
Yeah, Jerry Bonkowski, EssentiallySports.com. Check him out there. He does a great job covering NASCAR. Always appreciate you, my friend. Have yourself a great rest of your week, and we'll catch up next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jason.
Lots more to do on this Monday edition of Sports Wrap. Don't go anywhere. Odds and ends right around the corner. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Monday. Tomorrow on the show, Kurt Heelan, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. From New York, recap Game 3 of the NBA Finals between the Knicks and the Spurs. It's going to be an absolutely insane night in New York. Knicks fans will be partying somewhere, hopefully, but it won't be outside Madison Square Garden. I can promise you that. A couple of reminders before we go. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast is the place to listen to the show Monday through Friday. Subscribe. We also have bonus podcasts there, extended conversations, all of that great stuff. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page audio podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, everywhere podcasts are available. Subscribe today. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. It's the place to find all things Sports Wrap with Jason Page. The Monday through Friday TV version of the show is there. Sports Wrap Originals, Extended Conversations, Sports Wrap Shorts, everything you need. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Also coming soon, the SportsWrap website, sportswrap.tv. We were working on that this weekend. Looking forward to having that up with all sorts of great content available there as well. All right, Sam Yarnell, without any further delay, on this Monday edition of the show, let's not waste any time. Let's jump right into it. It's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. Nelly Korda, your winner at the U.S. Open. I think there were only like 10 players that finished under par in this thing. Nelly Korda is amazing. She gets the win in this. A lot of people forget her father was actually a very accomplished PGA Tour professional 100 years ago. But Nelly Korda, congratulations to her, your winner on the LPGA Tour, the big USGA event out there at Riviera. She finishes 8 under par for this tournament, finishes one shot better than Charlie Hull and Gabby Lopez. Nelly Korda, your winner, Sam Yarnell.
Had to do some fending off of Charlie Hull there at the end, but happy for Nelly Korda. It feels like I know there was like a weird spot in her game kind of at the end of last season heading into this season. Feels like this may be her getting out of that though. So good for Nelly Korda. Glad to see her back doing, Nelly Korda-esque things.
And
she is the most dominant women's golfer in the world right now when she's on her game.
And also say this, kudos to the USGA, $2.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
And the second and third place get over $1 million each. Good prize money from the USGA out at that U.S. Women's Open at Riviera Country Club. I like that.
Yeah, $12.5 million purse. And my immediate thought when I saw that was, wow, now the LPGA purses are as big as the PGA purses were before Live. Like that is objectively good for golf.
Yeah, I agree with that. Odds and ends, stay with the golf. The Memorial being played this weekend. Your winner, JT Poston, who's always good for a win once a year he always wins. Usually he wins some event nobody cares about. This is a big one. This is one of the PGA Tour's marquee non-major events. He wins at Memorial. Impressive win for him. But the story of the tournament may have been what took place yesterday with the guy who finished runner-up, Ryan Gerard, who's out there hitting a tee shot. He's got a fan heckling him for a ball to go into the bunker, and Gerard responds after piping one down the fairway. Ain't going in the bunker, bud. That guy, I hope they threw that heckler out. When did golf become the place where, you heckle golfers? When did this become the okay thing to do, Sam Yarnell? Because I'm trying to figure out where the turning point was. Maybe it has to do with betting. Maybe somebody had money on JT Poston and was hoping Ryan, Gerard fell apart. When did this become an okay thing to do?
YouTube golf, those of us who have played golf for a long time are finally starting to understand. YouTube golf has completely ruined golf for a lot of us who have played golf for a long time. And this is where that kind of thing comes from, right? There are literally social media accounts, I'm staring you right in the face, country club adjacent, who make profitable videos out of doing exactly this, usually at celebrity invitationals where no one really cares. The thing is now it's infiltrating the mainstream of golf, and that's really where the problem is. We got to do something. We can't just I'm sorry, as much as I'm a proponent of content creation and journalism, we can't just let anybody with a set of golf clubs and a camera show up and start filming themselves and making videos on golf and trying to teach people and stuff. I'm not going to get all deep into the history of that kind of thing, but it's getting really bad, Jason. I mean, not only do you have this, but you had countless incidents at majors. You even had people getting thrown out of the Masters for this kind of thing. YouTube golf has taken the game to a very, very strange place, and I hope some of the YouTube golfers can kind of do a good thing and reel it back in a little bit. I doubt that they will because they're all incredibly money driven. The Ryan Gerard thing is the most important thing here. He might be my favorite golfer on the PGA Tour now. This guy is an electric factory. Not only the talk back, which was awesome, you also had him sink that insanely long putt to get in or to take the solo lead at the time, which Poston would ultimately match. incredible golf this weekend out of Ryan Gerard. He's got to be one of my favorites on the tour right now.
Yeah. JT Poston, your winner. By the way, 8 shots back were Rory McIlroy and Scotty Scheffler. Scotty still can't get out of his own way. We got to go. We'll be back here tomorrow. Thanks to Jerry Bonkowski. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell. Go Knicks! We want the sweep. We'll see you later.